What's up, Southwest Virginia? Welcome back to Beats, Brews, and Buddies, episode 9, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Travis Schmidt. This is
Jeremy Price, the co-host.
On today's Beats, we are going to talk about studying in L.A., what it's like to have a rock star dad around Roanoke, and as always, community culture, collaboration, and chemistry with our good buddy, Alex Gross, ladies and gentlemen. Give it up.
What's up, everybody?
Thanks for coming, Alex. We appreciate it.
Yeah, I'm so excited for this. I've been excited for this for a few weeks now.
I'm glad it worked out. Now that you're out of school.
Me too.
So,
man.
Alex, before we get started, we like to talk about the brew, just so our audience knows that we are drinking and having fun up in here. So, Jeremy, what we drinking tonight?
Well, you mentioned the fact that Alex liked red wine, so I'm like, we haven't done that yet. Last week was coffee. And we don't, it's not always alcohol, let me just say.
That's true.
We've done coffee, we've done some tea, but we've never done wine, so I went by the Sharpe. I don't remember the name right now. And got the Llama Malbec, 2019 Malbec, Old Vine. How's it taste, guys?
It's actually
It's
really good.
Yeah.
Cheers to episode 9.
Episode 9.
Let me get
Cheers.
a clink.
Oh, it's so
You don't have to
weak.
clink. My neighbor's nickname is Clink, by the way.
He must be a really cool guy.
I think
the
he's a
video game.
mechanic of sorts. Anyway, back to Alex.
Alex started music in 7th grade with a teacher named Ken Wilson, who lived down the street. Ken was gracious enough to let Alex do chores and then pay for lessons. I love that. He started with drums, actually, and then switched to the guitar and then bass. I was actually asking Jeremy if he ever seen you play a guitar. He
I
was
didn't know.
I've never seen you pick up a guitar. So, and bass is what you stuck with, right?
Yeah.
And then you took lessons with Jake Dempsey of Roanoke and started taking regular lessons with Cam McLaughlin.
Yeah.
Did I say
I took
that?
one lesson with Jake, and basically I was just like, how do you slap? How do you play
How do you
slap
slap
bass?
that
And he
bitch?
was like, here's a flea song.
Did he
And-
teach you? Because I
Yeah.
don't think he really
It was weird. I was young, man, but he taught me how to do the cover they do. The
Higher Ground.
Yeah, Higher Ground.
Oh, yeah.
And that was like my first like real slap experience was with Jake. Funny.
You know, Jake got mentioned on the last podcast, by the way. I do remember that. So
Jake did.
Jake
And
Dempsey. So we gotta. I'll reach out to him and see if we can get him
I've
on.
been writing down anybody that's been getting 2 hits or more from our guests, and they need to go on our list of who needs to come on.
I'll reach out to Jake.
Right up,
Please,
Jake.
that'd be awesome.
So with Cam, it started it sounds like you learned from him at the Jefferson Center, the lab. The music lab.
Yeah, so I moved back from New Jersey, actually. I was living in Jersey for a couple years, and that's where I met Ken when I was really young.
Oh, cool.
And when I got back here, my dad was like, you got to get lessons with this guy, Cam. And he would, apparently, my dad taught Cam, a couple lessons back at Ridenauer when he was working there, a while ago when he was young.
Yeah.
And just was like, I'm not a bass player. You need to move on to this Bernard, I think. But,
He did move to Bernard.
yeah. And then so I was bugging him after he told me. I was like, you got to get me these lessons. It took him forever to just get me in, but I finally did, and it was consistent, and it was a big deal for me, really.
That's fantastic. So after that, you started singing in choir at Stanton River under Nicole Schmidt.
Yeah.
And played in the band under Kevin. Is it Ramey?
Ramey. Yep.
Okay. So Nicole, I'm assuming this is the same Nicole Schmidt that's at Patrick Henry High School now.
Exactly. At the time, she was Bonfiglio, but then she got married while I was there.
Look at that.
Yeah.
So small world. So I work with Miss Nicole now, and my last name is Schmidt, and we're not related. This was, and it says this was all the same time. When you graduated, you got into Berklee College of Music, which you decided not to attend, and then for an entire year played bass gigs around Roanoke with many different bands, such as Tony Cam and the Funk All-Stars, Back in Time, Harbor, Apple Butter Soul. I don't know why that's hard for me to read. Apple Butter Soul. Renee Ruth, and you filled in many other places, it sounds like.
Yeah.
And then you played in a band with one of the people who would ask you to go to Lynchburg College to play bass and study music. You decided to take an offer and study for 2 years under Ed McKinis.
Ed McKinis, yeah.
Brian Mesko. Chris,
Yeah.
Let me finish this. Ed McKinis, Brian Mesko, Chris Sharpe, Chris McGee, Johnson Scott, and all the fantastic teachers at college. So go ahead.
Yeah, I actually, so I played in Back in Time with Chris Sharpe, who was he was a trombone player, and he was one of the teachers at Lynchburg College at the time, and I was like midway through the year of just like gigging hard, and that was when I was meeting everybody.
Sure.
And he was just talking about it, and I had the idea. I was like, okay, we'll see what happens, and they gave me pretty decent financial aid, and so
How old were you?
Oh, man, I was right out of high school, so I was
18?
like 18, 19. Man. Yeah, probably 19 at the time.
Playing gigs at 18, that's like a lot of gigs at 18. I think that's really cool. And I want to mention that he is our youngest guest to date. So that's really? Pretty exciting. Yeah.
Just turned 25.
Good for you, man. Youngin', you're quarter century old. All right, so this is where you picked double bass up as well. You played drums in the jazz combo, as well as upright and electric in the big band and upright in the orchestra. During this time, you continue to play more gigs with some of the old bands, some of your older bands that I guess you played with, right?
Yeah, I was playing with Tony Cam for a long time. I stopped playing with him like right when I went to LA, and actually a band called Flat Five with a guy named Josh Barling, trumpet player, and I was the OG bass player for that band. He and I were he asked me to play in that band before anybody, so we just started gigging the jazz stuff with that, and they're still playing. They have an awesome bass player. His name's Eric Hollinsworth. If you know Eric,
I don't. I love learning new people. So you played with some old bands and started to play with many new ones, just as such as Canvas Collective. I like that name. Jordan Harmon, and was one of the original members, as just like you said, the Flat Five. Alex then transferred to college, Los Angeles College of Music, after 2 years in Lynchburg. This was a great decision at the time. As the time he spent there, he got to learn with some very heavy hitting bass players and musicians in general. You had both classes and lessons with Jerry Watts Jr., John Avila. Is that
John Avila?
Avila, sorry. Is that of Oingo Boingo?
Yeah.
And you said Peter Boscovich,
Mm-hmm.
Key Kim, Marke Brown, Tim Landers, Billy. Is it Coleman?
Billy. Oh well, Tim plays with Billy Cobham.
Okay, and
Al Di Viola.
Yeah,
Al Di Viola. Did I say that right?
Tim was awesome. He's a Berkeley guy from I remember a while ago, and he just got those gigs like right out of college. And I had him as a fretless bass teacher. I had him as a blues teacher. Awesome guy. I had him as a private teacher at a point.
That's awesome. I'm just in awe with all these names: Steve Jenkins, and then Steve Billman, and then you had been in ensembles directed by Mitch Foreman, and I'm gonna let you pronounce that orchestra.
Brian Pezzone. Oh, the orchestra Mitch played with is Mahavishnu Orchestra, which is John McLaughlin on guitar.
And then Brian Pezzone, which the Animaniacs.
Yeah, he was the piano player for all the Animaniacs stuff back in.
The cartoon.
Yeah.
Oh man, that's awesome.
Yeah, he was great.
Carlos Campos.
Yeah.
And then Steve Pemberton.
Yeah.
Okay. And then finally, you graduated this March, 2022, man, and has your sights on. You have your sights on Nashville, but in the time being, you're here at home, and just want to play and get back to the community.
Yeah, man.
So welcome to Beats, Brews, and Buddies, Alex Gross, dude.
Thank you so much, guys.
Man, what a bio. A lot of names that I don't know any, except for I do know Oingo Boingo.
Yeah.
It's a huge world. Music is a huge world.
Yeah.
Man.
It's a gigantic world. And, he's out here studying with people who've supported big names. So they aren't necessarily big names themselves, but they played in direct support of those big names. And, man, the list is impressive. Are you happy with your move out there?
Oh, man. LA was really hard to live in, just being from here, because there's like a buzz in the city. It's always something, and it's always like tense. But the people I met and the people I got to play with and learn from, just amazing. It's a completely different world, you know.
Well, that's where my first question for you is: talk about your experience out west and how the music and what you learned out there differs from your hometown.
Oh man, I mean, well, LA differs from everywhere, I think.
Yeah.
LA's like its own thing, and as far as the music I got to play here and then learn there, I took a lot from just playing and gigging in Roanoke. Like I had the ear going into school, just like that's why I could get a lot of the stuff that I did is because I had the ear to help me, you know, keep up with other people that knew more than I did. And when I got there, I got humbled real fast. I got humbled really fast. I mean, Jerry alone has played with stadiums, and he's played with some amazing South America guys, with everybody. And he was at first really hard on me. Like, he was pushing me to really learn, and something switched in my brain eventually after a couple quarters where I was like, oh, maybe I should be more open and just a lot more receptive to what these people have to say. Maybe I don't know everything.
There's a lot of music out there.
Oh, yeah. On the music out there. See, I got to play with one of my first guys I got to play with there. His name's Francis Carell. He has recently become very TikTok famous, like opening for Andy Grammer now.
Oh.
And I got to, like, just playing with him and realizing there's a real talent in pop music, like more than just what you would expect. There's real talent behind the writing and the singing skills. I mean, you have to have that to be in that world. And it was really interesting to play that stuff with him and to know that I could do more than just play 4 chords as people always talk about. LA has a lot of pop. But once you're out there, you realize how much work it takes to be in that part of the industry.
Yeah.
It's interesting, man.
Pop is, it's often, I don't want to say frowned upon, but the stepchild of music, right? I love pop. I've always loved pop. I've mentioned it here on the podcast where I always loved it. My friends were loving rock and roll and kind of giggle at me when I listened to something that was a little more bubblegum. Yeah, true. It's just 4 chords. Okay, you can do a lot with 4 chords. Yeah. You can paint that landscape many ways if you know how to do it. And if you can do it under the radar, it just shows something about your talent, your ability. It's art, and country. Exactly. Country. You can love country, old school country. That's generally a few chords too. So it gets a bad rap. Pop music gets a bad rap, and I get it. It can be corny, but it can also be really fun if a bunch of people are having a good time.
I've heard it get a bad rap because of the structure, not necessarily the chords, but the structure of, like, okay, we're gonna do a chorus 14 times. And but that's how. To me, that's what the definition of pop is. You hear it and you know it, and like it's there, and it's in your head.
Literally translates to popular. So it changes throughout time too. Michael Jackson was the king of pop at that point. Pop, that was pop music.
Yeah,
and no one doubts his musicality. No one doubts that.
Not one bit.
He'd go up there and sing a part to a guitar player, and it would just be a little ahead or a little behind. And Michael wouldn't necessarily say that's ahead or behind. He would just keep singing it to him over to get it right. I mean, that's an artist.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
Pop, country, progressive, whatever you want to say.
I mean, jazz was pop at one point. You know what I mean? Yeah. Jazz was considered the popular music at that time, and it was just as frowned upon by the people who weren't used to it as what's happening now.
Did you play a lot of jazz out there?
I played a lot of jazz everywhere. Yeah. That's something that doesn't change.
It's a universal
through cities. Yeah. A lot of jazz everywhere.
That makes me happy to hear.
Especially in a school setting. It's just, if you're in school, you're playing jazz at some point, which is why a lot of people will get really tired of it.
Yeah.
And I mean, I went through my phase, man. I was like, I'm sick of this, man. But once you leave it for a little while and you come back, you realize, wow, all of this stuff really translates to everything else. And then you come back and you really just internalize it. Yeah. It's a different, man. It's a language. It's people are talking to each other, and it's really fun. It's jammy. It's kind of like the Roanoke scene a little bit. Everyone's just having a good time and just jamming on tunes. The jazz music is like that, unless you're in like a setting where it's like really specific. But a real true jazz jam is the same thing. It's people drinking, people trying cool, interesting solos, or just playing forms.
We've talked a lot about that on the podcast.
Communicating.
Of not only that, but just the Roanoke scene, and there being a lot of good jam bands out there.
Yeah, man.
So, yeah. So anything else from Los Angeles that in comparative to here that you wanna add?
I mean, there's so much stuff.
Yeah.
There's so much different stuff out there. I mean, just first of all, the age gap. I'll say that. In LA, the age gap I had to work with versus some of the age gap I have here is completely different.
Younger?
So much younger.
Oh my God.
I mean, everyone there is some people's expectations there, they are kind of that younger, like, oh, I want to, be famous. I want to do this. And they think it's easy and like want to just do it. But the fact that there's so many younger people to work with and grab from, it helps you in a way where you can really tell who's good and who's not good.
Yeah.
And who knows what to do. And that kind of separates the thinking of it's easy, It separates the thinking because you get to see who really has it and how much work they actually have to put in for their music, and the people who just think it's expected and given. And that's something that LA has a lot. They have a lot of that. People just kind of expect it to come to them.
Yeah,
because they're in LA.
Because they're in LA.
Yeah. It's not necessarily how it works. I mean, you can pull from a big pool of musicians there, and there's a lot of opportunity to play with big people, but it doesn't just happen because you're there. You have to do the same thing you do in Roanoke to get those gigs as you do in LA to get those
Oh, that's
gigs.
important. I'm glad you said that.
No, yeah.
Because it's work.
Yeah.
We talk about it all the time. Music is work. And if you're successful at it at any level, chances are you put some work into it.
Yeah.
If you're successful at it at a higher level, let's say there's 10 levels of music and you're successful at level 2 or level 3, you have put some time.
Mm-hmm.
And that is, it's rare that is not the case. So it's good to hear. Also, I mean, two things with Los Angeles. It's LA, right? I don't know that it's the pop capital of the world, be it TV and radio and music and all that, but I would assume that. But the population as well. There's a lot of people.
I have a lot to say about that.
Yeah, there's just a lot of people, like you said, a pool to pull from. So they might feel like you said, it's expected. I'm from LA. I'm fairly talented. I'll get somewhere. Meanwhile, you have people traveling from Roanoke who already had a good ear, as you said, going out there to get in this giant population and make yourself better. So kudos to you for doing it. There's a lot of folks that wouldn't, and proud of you.
It's a big decision for sure. And when you get there, it's scary, man. It's especially being young when you do it, being in the opposite side of the country.
Man.
And coming from a place like Roanoke, which, I mean, Roanoke is not huge, but it's not tiny, but like I'm from Bedford County.
Yeah, I know.
So going from there to LA, one of the craziest places.
Yeah.
It was a lot at the time, but it did make me grow a lot as not just a musician, but a person.
Do you want to talk about the demographics out there and like how that played a role with who you are now?
Oh man, just the pure population out there. And I left here I couldn't like drive in a city. I was like nervous about it. Roanoke scared me, and like I couldn't really put myself out without feeling like, oh, I can't do this. But then when you get out there and you have no choice, it really it's like almost just jumping in the deep end immediately and learning.
Yeah. I
So I much more confident in myself now. A lot more confident in a good way though. Like I don't know it all. Like I'm open to stuff, but I know what I can do, and I know what I can't do.
We've talked a little bit in the past few episodes about that strong sense of confidence, not overconfidence where you're super cocky and no one wants to work with you, but the confidence where you know what you're good at and you're proud of that with yourself and owning that. And there's a lot of beauty behind that. And you owned the fact that you turned down Berkeley, and I want to hear about that.
Oh yeah, man. That was more of a financial decision.
That's all right.
Yeah. So
that's all right.
That's all right. That's all right.
I got up there, and at the time, since I was just out of high school, it was kind of a weird thing anyway. Yeah. And because I had never really been outside of Roanoke at that point, and I never really I gigged with one band where it was kind of given to us because we had a manager that would kind of book what we had, and I would just go play the songs I knew. And so I when I got to Berkeley, I didn't know. I was like, I could play pretty okay, but I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then me and my dad went up there together, and the financial side of it, we just realized how much it was actually going to be. I mean, over $100,000, like for almost 2 years. And so it would be more. It was just a crazy amount of money for me at the time to even comprehend. And I had already gotten into other schools, so I thought maybe I'll just take a break and I'll see what I can do with the Roanoke scene. I'll see who I can play with. I'll see how I get. And I ended up really just not regretting that decision in a way.
Good for you.
I did meet Steve Bailey while I was up there. Funny enough. So Steve Bailey, Bass Extremes, plays with Victor Wooten, amazing jazz player, super nice guy. I was going to get my mail out of the mailroom because I had mailed stuff to myself so I could put it in the dorm room. And I walk in and I kind of turn to my right and Steve Bailey's just like talking to the mail guy. I'm like, "You're Steve Bailey?" He's like, "Yeah, man." So I told him the situation. I was like, this is what's going on. He's like, "Oh, I really hope so." And we talked a little bit. I just couldn't. But like meeting him there, and it was crazy. It was crazy. And that was the first little taste I had of what could become LA. Because running into people like that is not uncommon.
No.
At all. It was pretty trippy, man. But yeah, Berkeley was, I love the people that come out of Berkeley. I think one of my favorite bass players, his name's Jacob Umansky, plays with the band Intervals. You should check them out if you haven't, but came out of Berkeley. There's a lot of awesome talent out of there. And I think it's just, for me at the time, it wasn't right. And now that I've gone through all of what I've done in LA and realized and learned from the people I have and had like a real sense of community, I don't regret it for sure.
Yeah, you're not going to regret that. And honestly, staying at home for a year, this goes with trades, it goes with any course of study. But staying at home for a year and getting into the grind, you're not gonna hurt yourself. Musically speaking, here in Roanoke, that's not gonna hurt anybody.
Yeah.
There's a lot of cats that have left, and you being one of them as you traverse these years. You're gonna be here in and out, and there's gonna be some hot shot up and comer, and you're gonna be here for him. So that's the whole nature of this thing.
Yeah.
Staying here in Roanoke, there are some cats that can push you. They're everywhere.
Yeah, for sure.
Especially here in this little town.
I mean, yeah, big time. There was, I mean, the guy that got me, so back to Brian Mesko being on this list, one of the first guys that I had as a teacher, the first guy that got me a real gig, he was like, "Hey, Renee Ruth is having this audition." And I auditioned for Renee in Lynchburg. She's a Lynchburg person. And in the band, Fred Jackson, one of the drummers that taught me everything because I started just gigging with him, one of my now really close friends, Matt Billings, plays keys in Canvas Collective. I mean, I met the right people, and those people branched into everything else, all because of Brian Mesko.
Yeah, that's cool.
I had lunch with him the other day, so if he's listening, shout out for sure.
We got to get him on too.
He's on my list, and his son goes to the high school I work at, so I see him and holler at him in the halls all the time when he's going to class. Just so you know. So Berkeley was a no-go, and then we go to Lynchburg, and then we go to LA. Yeah. Tell us a little about, and tell our younger listeners that your age too, that are in college. Talk about your college experience. What was it like? Did you play a lot of gigs when you were in college, or did you just do the studies? Just give us a little bit more than what you did in your.
Obviously, you're playing a lot, but I think what we mean is outside of that.
Correct.
Yeah, no.
Is there time just to go play to satisfy your heart?
I mean, practice, I assume, was a big
practice
part of that,
is something I learned how to really do in college, because if you didn't, people knew it. People could see it.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that came with the being humbled in LA, first of all, is you could tell when I didn't practice and I thought I could just show up and do it. But I learned very quickly that that's not going to fly with someone who has a real ear for music. And as far as my college experience in gigging, they slowed down heavily because I couldn't I couldn't handle all of it at the time. So I picked the main bands that I saw were helping me financially and I enjoyed. Good. And I stuck with them. And that's where Flat 5 came out of. I was missing a jazz group. I was playing with Tony Cam. I was playing with Canvas on and off, but Canvas was a special thing. It wasn't just like a bar band. They were doing special things. And so then I played with Flat 5, which we were doing the jazz things and going to the bars and really like making money.
Yeah.
So I had to slow down for sure because of the amount of stuff I was doing in school. But with that I sped up everything else. And that's where you really start the rubber meets the road in a sense of you've learned all this stuff playing gigs, and you have the basic level of like you're probably a little bit more advanced than some of the people around you in college because
to put it to use.
They're just starting. They didn't do what, if you're a gigging musician, they didn't do that, but they have that thing up on you of we can read and we can do all the extra stuff that these people want, and so you have to keep up with that. So that's where all the practicing comes in, and that's where the streets, in a way, of just gigging meet everything else. And that's when it, like, you really have to start thinking about what you're doing rather than feeling it, as people say.
Yeah.
And then once you learn all that stuff, then you can feel everything because you have played it and you've challenged yourself in a way where it's never going to go away, except for reading. I still have to practice that.
Most people do, man. I know people that read extremely well, and that is their claim to fame. They'll tell you. It's almost like they're vegan.
Yeah.
Like, hell, you play music? Do you read? I know people that do that.
Yeah.
I think once you spend a lot of time doing it and you start, you know how you feel yourself level up? You may not say it. You might not call it. You can feel it. I just leveled up a little, that confidence.
Yeah.
Yeah, you want to share it. There's two sides to that. You can be the great reader. You can feel stuff. You can work both ways.
Definitely.
But just, hearing you talk about spending time and how you have to work on that, it's just more kudos to you. I mean, it is very important to you to be excellent at your craft. And that's of all these things we've talked about so far. Like, that's what I'm hearing.
Thank you.
Stay the beginner mind because, who knows where you'll go.
And that's the humbling that happened in LA was even some of my best teachers were always like showing me new stuff and like always being like, oh, this is crazy. Like, we should work on this, or just ideas of not being like, oh, I'm the teacher, I know everything. We like learn together. And that translated to how I feel about everything, because I always want to learn something new. I'm never going to be the best at everything, but I know that I can try my best to be better than me.
No, I mean,
kind of cheesy, but
no, it's not.
That's
That's what we're doing here. I mean, we're trying to learn about this beautiful community that we have, and I mean, I just met you today. We've been chatting on Facebook Messenger, but like, I wouldn't know you other than the fact that you're Steve Gross's son. And I wouldn't have actually have known that if it wasn't for Jeremy saying, hey, it's Steve Gross's son that wants to come on the show. So I think there's
people I know.
no, and that's not a to make you feel any way. I think it's important to know where we lie and where we came from, obviously.
Yeah,
and
definitely.
You came from here, and what I want to know what the stages were. What's the lights? What's the sound like out there? Like,
what's the scene?
What's that scene like compared to Roanoke?
Travis hasn't been to L.A.
I haven't. No, I want to know, and I assume a lot of our listeners haven't either.
Probably not. I've been a few times. I get out of there as quickly as I can.
Yeah,
I'm out. I go see my friends. I'm like, bye bye.
As I always tell people, they're always asking me, how is it? I was like, it's great to visit. And some of the people are great, but it's a really hard place to live. Yeah. It just is. And I heard it in an interview one time, it's spiritually a hard place to live.
Oh.
And it's just because there's so much buzz and there's so many people with so many ideas and so much energy around there.
It's hard to find.
You can feel it, And when you're from the country and you're not used to helicopters flying over your apartment all the time, every day, and things slamming, and we had power lines blow up outside of our window at points. Just like all that stuff that you're not used to here, you're just like, oh, something's happening.
Always.
Yeah, so as far as the stages and the gigging, while I was out there, COVID happened. So when I first got there, I started a band with, I got asked to be in a band, and it ended up being an awesome project that I really loved, and COVID destroyed it. But as far as stages and playing, I mean, instead of getting paid to play venues that are dingy, you're paying to play venues that are dingy.
In LA?
Yeah, except for one place I played recently, Molly Malone's. Shout out to that venue. Awesome sound, great people, but you're not getting paid unless you have a draw out there. You're doing it out of, I like this music. So I'd say it's a lot more creative in the sense of people are trying to do their own stuff rather than just play in front of people.
We had a guest a few weeks ago that spoke about how he and his group would pay for the venue here at the Bureau. I mean, AJ Garrett said that, and I just was like, what? Here?
Yeah.
And it's a foreign concept for me, and I'm not trying to play ignorant, but like again, we don't know what we don't know.
Yeah. So basically how that works in LA and how it is, venues would ask you and talk to you about it, but then you would buy tickets.
Okay.
And you would have to sell those tickets to make a certain amount on your money. So you would spend your own money on tickets, and then people would have to buy them so you could make that money back, and so the venue could make their money off of you, basically. Instead of making their money off of people showing up, they're making their money off the musicians that want to play these places because they have names behind them, like Whiskey A Go-Go and the Troubadour, I think, is there. Like all sorts of venues that are, you've heard those names.
Yeah.
They're bars that are glorified because of who's played in them, and now they're benefiting off of that. That's a big thing.
No, Schmidt.
I have played, and when you go, the thing is with that though, LA has outside of LA. So like you go to San Diego, you can go north. The best gigs I played were all outside of the city.
Okay.
Yeah. I played a Belching Beaver brewery with a guy named David Fitzfaten.
I've been to Belching Beaver.
Yeah, dude.
That peanut butter.
So good, right?
Boy.
You drink one, you feel like you ate a full steak dinner, but it's delicious. It tastes like a peanut butter cup. Oh, it's and like coffee almost. It's super good.
Back when I had it, it was a few years ago. We have the Sweet Baby J, the Sweet Baby Jesus, peanut butter porter or stout, whatever it is. And then my friends, I was on tour with some guys from San Diego. They're like, well, the Belching Beaver has one. And I'm like, well, listen, we got that Sweet Baby Jesus over here. Not that it's local. So my pride was, unfounded in a way. Yeah. And then I had it and I was like, man, I bought T-shirts.
Yeah. I
bought beer.
I played there for a 3-hour gig with this guy that was like a week notice. And that was the one I got. I got the, I asked the guy, I always ask bartenders or like people at restaurants, I was like, what do you recommend? She was like, people like our peanut butter stout. And I was like, let me try that.
She didn't say everybody. She said just people.
They also do the Deftones beer. Is that correct?
Yeah, they have the Deftones on there. I didn't try it, but I saw it. My girlfriend loves Deftones, so I was like, I'm interested in this. I also like that band. They're great.
Oh yeah.
I love the band. I can't listen to more than 4 tunes.
It's heavy.
And I love those 4 tunes. You know who else? The Quicksand, who just put a new album out after a bunch of years. It's like the other Deftones.
Yeah.
Check that out.
You should check out a band from the UK called Loathe.
Loathe?
They're like Deftones meets death metal. And it's really interesting. I really like it.
Death metal tones.
Basically.
Death metal. All right, go ahead.
No, they're sweet, but
I can feel this wine. I don't drink wine very much.
I don't either.
About to turn up.
Watch out.
Happy bubbly, man. Happy bubbly.
So I want to segue a little bit, and I do want to ask you to describe what it's like to have a dad that is as talented as you are. And maybe he's not. I don't know. And what influence did what influence did I believe that he is? And what influence did he have on your musical taste and your journey? And and then this is kind of a loaded question, but was there an expectation for you to have to play?
Okay, the expectation thing I can do quick. No.
Good.
Because he was always like, you need to go into accounting.
What a good dad.
He's like music. Like he could tell, I guess, when I was, learning about it, he could tell, but he was like joking about it, of course, but he's like, go into accounting, man. It's a hard thing, music. But the expectation never. And funny enough, he more shaped my musical taste with like videos I would have, like DVDs of like Dream Theater.
Okay.
And
I think that's perfectly fine.
And even less them being his, my granddad's, like his dad's. They both were in a band at the time too. He was a drummer.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
No way.
A band called Time After Time. And he was the drummer, my dad was the singer. So I was always around that. And that was before I could even really remember things. So I vaguely remember it, but that musical thing. And then apparently, person I never met, my great-grandfather, who was my granddad's dad, was a bass player. I had no idea. And I found out because we have this OG Music Man Stingray, one of the first like made. And I was like, where is this? And then they told me the story. He used to play with, I think the story is he's played with people that have played with Elvis in this area at the time in which he was doing it. And there, I found in that case like old paper with notes written on it. Like, I think that's a big thing that shaped me. I think it was a combination of that. So my dad never forced it. He was just like listening to music, and I was around it, but I never got into it. I actually got really into learning when I lived in New Jersey, which I wasn't with my dad at that time. And that was when I had Ken as a teacher, when I got really lucky and he Mr. Miyagi'd me, basically, you know. So having that was cool. And here's another quote from my dad. I was asking him to teach me guitar or bass at one point, and that's when he was like, you need to learn from Cam. He was like, it's like doing brain surgery on your own child. Your child doesn't want to listen to you, so it's hard to teach. So that's why he was trying to push it out.
Man,
Your dad knows what he's talking about.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna save all my stories with your dad until he comes on the show, and that's only fair. But I've known him for a long time. He's always been quite wise when it comes down to it, and that's true.
Practical.
You don't. I'll go ahead and say it. I was witnessing some of this today. Like, my lady is teaching my daughter how to read. That's just where we are right now with her age and COVID, and she's not in actual school.
Yeah.
Man, kudos to her for doing that. What a task. But I watch them bicker just because, A, mom has an expectation, and B, the kid sees you as mom.
Yeah.
Right. So there's a thing there that I'm not even inclined to talk about. Travis is a behavioralist. He can probably speak to it better. If my child gets into music, and I won't deter her, but I'll encourage her no matter what she does. But if she gets into music, I don't really want to teach her. I might show her first few things, and then send her on her way, and then meet her, circle back around.
Yeah.
Because it's like doing brain surgery on your own child. The investment is there, and you're going to try to live vicariously through them, and you're also going to try to correct every mistake you made through them. And, I mean, maybe that's not true in all cases, but I think it's true in a lot of cases. Yeah. So good on him. Good on you, Dr. Steve Gross.
No, I'll share a quick story. We played at a photography shop, your dad and I didn't play with him. I actually heard him perform the first time, and this is when I was young and up and coming and trying to make my own name, and they were gracious enough, and this is when he was playing with Mike Havens. Mike Havens asked him to come play, and he sang, and I was like, oh my God, this voice, like, it's unlike anything I've ever heard, at least here in Roanoke. I asked that question because I think, like I said earlier, it's important to know where our roots are, and I mean, I think it's cool too that you have a dad that plays music around here too, and you do as well. And I wanted to give, I know this is your podcast, but I want to give him kudos as well.
Definitely. So he's a big part of it.
Yeah, and I think that's cool.
Half of my stuff, half the people I run into are like, "Oh, Steve's your dad," Like half the people are like, "I'm like, yeah."
Those lovely locks that you're wearing right now.
Do you get tired of it?
No.
Be honest.
Because it's not enough to bother me, because I really have my own music. It's very different than my dad's music, the way I really want to play. And so I had my own path where people had no idea. But then I would play in some of the bands where I was filling in and certain styles that were closer to it, and they'd be like, "Oh, like Carlos, the drummer that he lives in Knoxville now."
Yeah.
I knew him through my dad, and Carlos was one of those drummers like Fred who really taught me how to gig professionally and how to do it right. And whenever I'd mess up, he would let me know. He'd be like, "If you were any different person, I would have trouble with you right now." And he would like guide me in a way.
Carlos would be a hard ass sometimes.
Yeah.
I don't know the guy.
Carlos, I done good, and we'll get him on here at some point.
Shout out to Carlos. He's a good time. My 21st birthday,
Elefante.
I went out with him, and my dad was like, "Be careful. Carlos will make you do more."
So do you like to play all the music that you play? Or
I like most of it. I like it in the moment if I'm playing it live. So anything I play live, I do in the moment.
That's a cool answer. I haven't heard that answer before.
I'm going to write it down.
Yeah.
So in the moment it's always fun. But is all the music I play my preferred music that I listen to? Definitely not. I wish I could play more metal music a lot of the time, which is something I got into after I got tired of jazz. And then I found these just crazy metal bass players that really inspired me to learn an even different way to approach playing. Like the guy in Periphery, Nolly Get Good. I saw one bass playthrough of how he plays the song Prayer Position, and I had to learn it. I spent, even in college, usually songs take me like a couple minutes, maybe to an hour if it's hard. That song took me months to learn. And I did it for my junior recital with a band. Still had a hard time with it. And that's something that excites me.
Is that on your Facebook?
Yeah, it is.
I saw that on your Facebook.
So
I watched it.
Difficult.
That was awesome. That was cool.
Difficult. Thank you.
That was cool. I watched that the other day.
Oh man, the heart of a musician. Like I'm hearing you talk about just how difficult it is and how much time you put into it. And I've definitely got a few of those that I did. You probably have some. But
no,
nowadays it's not. That is not on my radar. I still appreciate it like it was, but it's just not on my radar anymore.
I just finished a run at Mill Mountain with In the Heights, and I haven't played Latin since I left college, and it was really difficult. And thank God I had Jeremy there as my teacher mentor to help me figure out 3-2 son and
Cascara
and Cascara.
Yeah, man.
I mean, but you learn so much about yourself in those moments when you just let go and let learning kind of take its place. And man, I feel much better as a drummer.
I will say also with the Latin thing you mentioned, learning in LA.
Oh God.
So much Latin music. I mean, one of the drum teachers who I adore, awesome teacher. I didn't realize what he's done until like one of my last quarters, because I had to play a tribal tech song. Gary Willis, Joey Heredia, the drummer on that song is a teacher at LACM, and he just outstanding. I mean, just amazing. And we had Ralph Humphrey, and we had the drummer that just recently passed away, played with I can't remember the name. I'm super bad with names. One of the blues guys, OG, really crazy, killing blues guy, kind of progressive blues. Zappa.
Okay.
He played with like the original drummer for Zappa. He was a teacher at the school. Having those guys and having the Latin people and being in LA at that time, I learned so much about just that style of music. I did an Elise Regina song on one of my recitals, just playing that stuff like Partito Alto style and Bossa Nova.
Partito Alto.
Oh man!
I nearly said when you said Cascada, I nearly said we just lost half our listeners. That style of music, it's storytelling, it's ceremonial. Yeah. It's something you need to live if you really want to do it.
Yeah,
I will gladly say I don't do it as authentically. Probably more authentically than some in our area. So happy to share with a guy like Travis, but you don't see me just showing up at salsa jams talking about, hey, I got this. Sir. And a lot of music is that way. A lot of music is ceremonial and communicative, and so it's cool that you were out there in LA experiencing that version of. So it's still music, right? Still the same 12 notes. It's still rhythm, but the way it's spoken could not be more different. Yeah. And the more in tune you are to yourself, the more you can actually feel how you may or may not be qualified to play that music yet.
Definitely.
And I hear it go the other way. I hear a lot of people, I love Brazilian musicians and, Cuban musicians. Sometimes they come over into the American scene, and you can hear where they might, I don't say they get stuck. You can just hear it's not where they're from. You know, we are communicating. We are speaking through a different medium when we play music.
100%. And I will say with that, being from the South helped me in a lot of the genres.
We got a thing.
Like a lot of the genres, the feel. When you go over to a place like LA and people aren't from somewhere that has that like really blues, southern, like just behind the beat thing. Yeah. That helped me with a lot of stuff. That's when people were like, man, your feel's great. Like drummers love playing with that kind of feel, and that being from the South, it really helped with that. Big time.
You can be a little lazy in places.
Exactly.
And it actually turns out being funky.
Exactly.
Exactly. There's a Southern soul vibe. I wasn't even aware of it until I left and did what I did, and it was spoken to me, and then I started paying attention. And I played a gig last Thursday, and a drummer friend of mine was at the gig, and he's like, man, I like how your 2 and 4 is always late. And he was not being a jerk. He was like, I like it. And I don't know I do know how to play it early, but you can see my eyebrows like this the whole night if I play it that way. And that's the beauty of it. We play with the people that make us feel comfortable and make us feel like we can tell our story.
Exactly.
Doing that, and then we also challenge. While I'm running my mouth, we also challenge each other in different ways. You know, there are people that can play different styles of music, and you were talking about how there's a teacher who obviously, or you said something about maybe one or two of your teachers that would teach you something, but they had a little bit of humility behind it. They would say, like, let's work on this. You said this together, and they would be own that humility and obviously probably pick it up quicker than you because they do that more.
Exactly.
But it's not just, so in the musical world, you can be handed an ass whipping, but it's an ass whipping with a smile.
Yeah.
With the hopes that you practice and take that ass whipping and share it with somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
And especially in Nashville, they love handing out ass whippings, big old grins. I won't say ass whipping anymore on this podcast. We have a five ass whipping limit. But it is how it works, and it's all in good nature, and it's all just to push the art.
Yeah.
Well, it's humbling to hear how you got your ass whipped.
Oh, definitely.
With I went over. I did that on purpose. No, it is, and I think we need to say that more often. Like
episode 9, Alex Gross's ass whippings.
I'm naming it.
Giving some and taking some.
I'm naming this episode "Gross Bass Licks," bro. Okay, moving on.
I'm down with both.
So thus far, you have literally been our youngest guest to date, and what I would like for you to do is give our younger listeners some advice on how to begin playing in the music scene, and also talk to our older, more seasoned viewers and listeners what it's like to be the young gun playing with an older group of members.
Yeah. So for the young people, I'd say open your ears to older music first of all, because you're gonna learn more from that about playing the new stuff. On top of, you're gonna relate to a lot of the people you're playing with a lot more.
Okay.
Like every band I played with, except for my very first band, and maybe the ones I have had recently, I was the youngest guy every time. Every time.
Again, a loaded question. I did my research, so keep going.
It never felt, especially because I listened to that kind of stuff already, because I really dove deep into that feel. And being a bass player, you listen to a lot of old bass players. That's because that's just how it is. You just listen to that genre, because bass in the modern era has a lot less to pull from certain people. At the time in which I was growing up, now there's a bunch of people that are really you can take from. But at the time, it was like I was taking from all the old school stuff. And so when you learn from that and you go play with some of these older guys, it's almost non-existent, the age gap, when you know it, when you feel the same thing they feel. And as far as the older guys, be strong on the young people, but don't be jerks, because I've had that too. I've had people, because I play with a lot of soul, I play with a lot of funk bands and soul bands. I was white and young. People would be like, man, he doesn't know. And when I would play, they'd be like, oh, I get it. It's just what you listen to.
Yeah.
So be open. I'd say for the older people, not all.
Alice Grosson told the old people to be nice. He said, be nice.
And with that, I've had so many, and the reason I am who I am is because of those nice older people. They helped me where it was missing, and I helped them, I guess, understand that it wasn't just generational. Because I'm 25 years old, I have a whole lot more in my brain that's way behind me than I do now, like young music.
And there is an experience that comes with that olderness. I get that. Mm-hmm. But as a younger player, you do want to be heard. Yeah. And you want that chance to be
you said olderness.
Olderness.
I'm gonna say age.
Age. That's fine too.
I'm gonna use olderness from now.
Share the experience. You have the experience, so share it in a positive way. That's how I feel.
Well, that's kind of how you develop that sense of chemistry within that group, and sometimes it doesn't work out that way. You said it, the ones that are jerks, right?
Yeah.
And so, I've sat in it. It's hard. It's hard.
And I'll say this: there's a lot less jerks than there are nice people.
No, there are
a whole lot less. But when you run into one, it affects you more for some reason. That's just how the human brain works. Like you really take in the bad things a lot better. For some reason, you remember them more. But I'll say that I've had so many more good experiences with older people, and it's awesome, because then they're surprised at you.
Well, like I said earlier, you're quite concerned with your craft, so it hits you hard when they would give you some ish that you weren't prepared for.
I'm sensitive.
Well, it's sensitive, but you want to better yourself in those ways. Obviously, you went to Los Angeles and studied music for a couple of years, so I think you've said some really wise, very, very wise things. Like if I can digress or regress, when you said when Travis said, we asked most of our guests this: do you like all the music that you play? And we've talked about it before we started the podcast. We talked a lot about this, and you said I like it in the moment. That's a Buddhist answer. I don't know if you know this. That is definitely a Buddhist answer. But then saying, telling the kids to open your ears to older music. I didn't like hearing that when I was young.
Yeah.
And I think it was different. I think the kids, the cats that were putting on music when I was young were still on to some new trends. Yeah. But as I age, I find myself going back further. Yeah. Not looking into the future. It's not the musicians aren't good. It's that we stand on the shoulders of giants. Definitely. And it might take you some time to realize that. But if you listen back. And then to also say, hey, old folks, be easy. Mm-hmm. Right? Because they're coming from, I know a lot of old players. They'll remain nameless. They're fantastic at what they do. Usually 1 or 2 trick ponies. Yeah. I love learning from 1, 2 trick ponies. I want to learn that trick.
They're really good at that trick, man.
But I'm not in your rodeo. Yeah. I'm on a different journey. So it's really nice to hear you say all this stuff. And I think this might be one of, well, I'm not going to say that. It's just a very informative
No, for somebody who's 25, I'm 10 years older, and I don't have half the wisdom that you do. No, I
don't believe that.
No, I know you don't. But I don't mean that in a negative sense to myself. I'm learning through this, and this is I'm just getting so much, and I'm still a very baby musician even in this town, and that's fine. What I love is that I love the whole theme of humbleness, and I've seen that quite often with a lot of our guests.
And you would be. Go ahead.
No. I was just going to say that musicians from this area are not only talented, but they're humble in a sense to where they're willing to give back to not only the community but to our other musicians, and I just think that's really beautiful.
You know where you stand. If you don't own it somehow, some way, know your ability, know where you stand, know what you're good at, know what you're not good at, know what you're okay at. That's valid. There's some things I'm okay at that I wouldn't, like Latin stuff. I wouldn't go just do that anyway. Yeah. Know it, own it, and be you. That's how you develop like a clear conscience in your conversation with other people. And you're like, I'm not good at this, I'm good at this. That's where the ego, you can just put that on the ground and hang out and learn. And musicians who are up and coming are like, this guy's great and this guy's great. And then the people on the outside looking in like, well, this guy's super cocky because he's a musician, he's a singer, he thinks his ish don't stink, whatever. Yeah, some of it's true, but when you really boil it down, we know what we're good and bad at. We know what we need to work on. And what you find here is people willing to talk about it and willing to expose it and make it better. We just want to push each other. Yeah. And I think that's what's happening. It's really cool to hear some of the stuff you're saying. I think you're going to go really, really far, actually.
Dude, Alex, you're going to crush it.
Can I play? I want to play congas in your band.
I just want to play in a band with you. Can you
in your band?
Can I be in the band?
Yes.
Everybody come.
It's the Roanoke Symphony Orchestra.
All right, one of my final questions I like to ask, especially within these first 10 episodes since you're number 9. We talk a lot about the experience that we have on stage, but that experience for some of us it needs to be a financial existence. So can you talk to our viewers about how important the money aspect is for you? Is it supplemental, or is it like this is going to be the life thing for you?
So I'll say this: I'm very lucky. I'm very lucky in having support that I do. It's so important to have the financial side of it right, and I'm still learning that. That's probably, if I know something, I know very little about the financial side of it, and that's something that I want to learn and I need to learn. So it's extremely important, but it's also extremely important to know everything about it. Yeah, because if you don't and you go in thinking, oh, I'm gonna make $100 for this gig and it's 3 hours and you're making this much per hour, you can't divvy it up like that. You're putting so much more time into it. Yeah, you have to know all aspects of what you're actually putting into it. Like and another thing is if you take something that's going to take up, 8 days of your time or something, that's only like 1 or 2 gigs, and you get other offers, you're losing money by doing that and not doing other things that are offered to you. So it's so important, and that's something I'm still teeter-tottering
And all those things are super important. And, whoever's listening to this, and, I hope it grows more, but you might be in one of these bands who's offering a gig to somebody who's in Alex's situation, who's busy and might end up losing money doing your gig. Everybody's out here doing the best that they can, and it should be understood as such.
Exactly. You can't go into a situation with a guy that's going out of his way for you and make it hard on him when he's already pushing for you and losing something to do something with you.
100%.
Which I have experienced before. It's people expect certain things, and it's like, you have to expect me to do what's best for me, and I'm always going to try what's best for you as well.
I've showed up to a rehearsal where people weren't prepared, and then it that leads on in parallels to the gig, and it just is, it's tough.
Being that guy too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
No, and
I've been that guy.
I have also been that guy. I'm not to just call out anybody, but yes, you're exactly right. I have been that guy.
Learn from that feeling is what I'd say, because it's bad.
It's uncomfortable.
Also, be on time.
Oh,
come on. That's something. That's something that I've never had that problem. Except for if I am late to something, it hurts so bad. It feels so bad. But I've experienced too many musicians.
He was 7 minutes early, ladies and gentlemen. Give him props.
He was. We hung out for 45 minutes before we did the podcast. He is correct. Be on time. It's not even for your own integrity. It's for the integrity of whoever called you. Let them know that you care that much.
That you at least respect their time.
And check it out.
Just as much as yours.
If you're going to be late, let them know.
That's it.
It's that
plain and simple.
It's that simple.
Super simple.
Unless you're letting them know every time. Then don't do that.
Then quit.
But do let them know.
Then quit. Somebody will take that job.
Or get fired. Whatever. All right, Jeremy. We're going to hit him with the Buddy Gauntlet.
The Buddy Gauntlet. Did you send Alex these questions?
I did not.
Oh, well, I mean, like your general questions.
I did send him my general
questions.
questions.
So we do 3 questions that you don't get sent.
Got it.
I'm going to make my notes. Top 3 influences. Musical influences.
Oh, they change daily, man.
I love it.
Sweet.
What's today's?
That could be it. Number 2. No, I'm kidding. If you got 3, let me know.
I can. Okay. Miles Davis, one of the best. Don't play. He knows which notes to play that are really nice. These are just rapid fire. So Miles Davis would be a huge one for me. I'm going to say Pino Palladino. Amazing studio bass player and plays with so many people. Pino is always going to be on my top bass list. And then I'll do a new one. Right now, I would say a really awesome bass player right now for me is it's between Jacob Umansky and the guy from Periphery, Adam Nolly Get Good. Those 2 are my 2 right now.
Get Good?
Yeah.
Adam
Nolly Get Good.
How do you spell Nolly?
Nolly, I think. Pretty sure.
Get Good?
Yeah.
Your top non-musical influence.
Non-musical influence.
It could be in life. It could be in music. It could, but the influence itself.
I love movies, man. I'm a huge movie guy. Does that count?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I love learning from shows and movies because they have a lot to say.
What do you learn from them?
So I can talk about Naruto. I can talk about Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I'm all about it. Let's stop the podcast and keep going.
So, I mean, just how to really deal with certain things and how to handle emotions in the correct way, because you can see how they don't, and you can see how through, even if it's fake, because you can say it's TV all day, but how some of these characters handle the problems and how they move forward with a good mindset and how they get better from it, that translates big time in life.
I'm gonna interject and say, but most of those 2 examples you gave are based off of other cultures, and I think that's really, really imperative for us to understand.
Definitely.
I'm going to hand Alex's pen. I got a word for you. Didn't mean to make you move, but I obviously wasn't moving. Somebody had to. I've got a word for you.
I'm still the young guy, so I got to move.
Vipassana. VIP. A. Ssana. Vipassana. Your answers have pointed in a direction that you don't know what Vipassana is, right?
I don't.
Can I have that pen back?
Yeah. This time I'm gonna toss it. You
Okay,
ready?
I'll get it. It's a style of meditation, and the word I think it's a Pali word that translates to seeing things as they are. As easy as that is for me to say, it is a practice when you sit and close your eyes. And I highly encourage you, as you start this career, start thinking about things as you already do. But maybe you get some guidance here. Vipassana. Look into Vipassana.
Definitely.
And if you struggle with it, send me a message, and I'll send you some teachers that you may not struggle with. Some teachers you might struggle with. I doubt it. It's a very practical meditation.
Okay.
And I don't have any time to go into it further. But check it out, because you're echoing a lot of things. It's as if you've studied it already.
Nice.
Name one opinion that you held and you changed it. One opinion that you just held strongly to and you just changed your mind. Could be anything.
So this is something I'm still working on, but don't hate on people that so there's this culture behind Instagram right now in music where it's like all these chop guys. So many people are doing so much stuff. And it's at certain points you're like, is this like it's enough? Like where's the musicality behind it? But something I've learned is there's so much going on in their brains at that point that there's so much musicality happening there that if they even deconstructed it a little bit, you can take pieces of it. So just being kind of opposed to all this crazy chop stuff. That's something a lot of people I've noticed are, and that's something that I've kind of shied away from because it's like appreciate what everyone can do for different reasons, you know?
Yeah.
Don't shun things just because they're different than what you can maybe do or what you think.
Yeah. That's a really interesting one because a lot of people have their feelings. I've been told I chop too much. I've been told I play like a drum machine. I would like to tell everybody, come to more than one gig.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly.
But ultimately, that's not your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And if people are watching it and you don't like it, don't watch it.
Yeah, exactly.
And don't watch it with zero sense of judgment. Like, can you look at a chop on Instagram and be like, oh, I'm over it? Or can you look at it, oh, it's an amazing chop? Can you go and just let it go without your opinion?
Yeah.
Vipassana. I think you're on to some ish right now.
Nice. I
Man,
love it.
Alex, it's been so good having you. Are we playing a tune?
We are going to play a tune. Do you want to introduce this tune?
Sure.
It's Clueless, right?
Yeah, this is the band I talked about in the beginning. This is the band that I met the drummer at LACM, the school I went to, and he was just like, hey, I have this band, you know, we're putting something together, like come play. And I ended up meeting one of my best friends. His name's Adrian Fatou. One of my best friends, amazing guitar player, and then a songwriter, his name's Oscar, and then the drummer, Zach. I mean, a project that I wish could still be together, and I'm still friends with kind of everyone in there, but man, it's a cool thing.
Was it a Los Angeles thing?
Yeah, an LA
Okay.
thing, yeah. Something when I first got there, and over COVID, it kind of just melted out. But the guy that produced this song, his name's Jonah. He's with Audiomech Production. He is Audiomech Production, but he's Travis Barker's personal assistant to like record his videos, and he worked on some of the new records that he's been with. So it was, and he got that gig while working with us. It was a surreal thing, you know.
Nice.
It was cool.
Ladies and gentlemen, Alex Gross. This is Clueless. Color of Nothing by
Clueless
by Color of Nothing. Sorry, so
All
sorry.
good, man.
It's got an E next to it. Is it explicit?
Kind of.
Let's go.
Not really. Not really.
I don't know why. It's Spotify.
Like,
so
it has one cuss word.
I thought that E stood for excellent.
I think so too.
Excellent.
Beats, Brews, and Buddies. Alex, thanks for coming.
Yeah,
man.
thank you guys so much.
man.
This is Clueless by Color of Nothing. Got it right that time. Bye, guys. We'll see you next time.
something that I can't seem to grasp or really appreciate. This shitty purgatory, trapping me inside this empty nothingness I'm used to. When will I see the barriers blocking serenity? When will I learn it's hopeless, I'm clueless. All I see is a shadow of doubt lurking right beside me always. I keep telling myself that it's okay, it's okay, it's okay.